The message reached you at a strange moment, didn't it? Not when everything was perfect. Not when every question had an answer. It reached you while a part of you was wondering why certain patterns keep returning no matter how hard you try to escape them. And tonight, the message is about someone much closer than you expected. Someone you still trust. Someone whose name may have crossed your mind before you even heard these words. Listen carefully, because when I say, "I was sent by God," I am not asking you to become afraid of your family. I am asking you to recognize something deeper. Sometimes what feels like a curse is a pattern of fear, control, resentment, guilt, or pain that has been passed through a family for years. And you have 3 days to begin breaking its power over you. 3 days. Not because something terrible will magically happen when the clock runs out, but because there are moments when delaying a necessary decision allows an old pattern to tighten its grip again. This is one of those moments. There is a family member you still trust. You may love this person deeply. You may have defended them when others questioned their behavior. You may have told yourself, "They would never intentionally hurt me." But here is the revelation you were not expecting. The person does not necessarily have to hate you to keep you trapped. Sometimes people hurt us because they are afraid of losing control over us. Sometimes they discourage our growth because our transformation forces them to confront their own stagnation. Sometimes they repeatedly remind us of who we used to be because they are uncomfortable meeting the person we are becoming. And sometimes the deepest family wounds are passed down without anyone realizing what they are carrying. That is the curse you are being called to break. A cycle. A pattern. A voice that entered your mind so long ago that you eventually mistook it for your own. You will never make it. People like us don't succeed. Don't dream too big. Stay where you belong. You owe everyone everything. You're selfish for choosing yourself. Nothing good lasts. Money always disappears. Love always ends badly. Trust nobody. Have you heard words like these? Maybe they were never spoken exactly this way. Maybe they appeared through actions. Through criticism disguised as advice. Through jokes that always seem to target your weakest places. Through silence when you needed encouragement. Through guilt whenever you tried to create boundaries. Through strange resistance whenever something good began happening in your life. And now the first revelation arrives. The curse did not begin with you. That is why fighting yourself has never completely solved it. You were trying to repair something whose roots existed before you understood what was happening. Think about your family history. Look at the patterns. Who repeatedly sacrificed their dreams because they were told family must always come first? Who stayed in relationships that destroyed their peace? Who struggled with money generation after generation? Who believed suffering was somehow proof of loyalty? Who became afraid whenever life started improving? Who was taught that saying no was disrespectful? Who learned to remain silent to keep everyone else comfortable? There is a pattern hiding inside those answers. And once you see a pattern clearly, it becomes much harder for that pattern to control you. But there is more. Because the person connected to this pattern may not be the person you originally suspected. That is what makes this message so unsettling. It could be someone whose approval you have chased for years. Someone whose opinion has influenced decisions they never should have controlled. Someone you automatically consult before making a move. Someone who knows exactly which emotional button to press when you begin becoming independent. Maybe every time you announce something exciting, they immediately tell you everything that could go wrong. You say, "I have an opportunity." They say, "Be careful." You say, "I met someone wonderful." They say, "People always change." You say, "I want to start something new." They say, "That sounds risky." You say, "I finally feel happy." And suddenly they remind you of your past. Once could be concern. Twice could be coincidence. But when the same response appears every time you grow, you need to pay attention. Because love and control can sometimes wear similar clothing. Both can say, "I'm only trying to protect you." But genuine love eventually allows you to walk. Control keeps reminding you that you cannot survive without permission. And this is where your 3 days begin. Day 1 is revelation. You are not confronting anybody yet. You are observing. For 1 day, listen differently. Notice how people respond when you speak positively about yourself. Notice who celebrates your progress without immediately attaching fear to it. Notice who respects your boundaries. Notice who constantly demands explanations. Notice who becomes uncomfortable when you stop apologizing. Notice who needs you to remain emotionally dependent on them. And most importantly, notice your own internal voice. When you imagine your biggest dream, whose voice tells you it cannot happen? That question may change everything. Because sometimes the person who placed the pattern in your life is no longer actively saying anything. Their voice simply became your inner critic. You carried it forward. But you can stop carrying it. Day 2 is separation. Not necessarily physical separation. Not hatred. Not revenge. Not accusation. Separation means recognizing what belongs to you and what does not. Their fear belongs to them. Their disappointment belongs to them. Their expectations belong to them. Their unfinished dreams belong to them. Their mistakes belong to them. Their definition of success belongs to them. You are allowed to love someone without adopting their limitations. Read that again inside your spirit. You can love someone without inheriting their fear. You can respect your family without repeating every family pattern. You can honor where you came from without remaining imprisoned there. And there is a shocking reason this particular pattern has become so intense recently. You are changing. That is why you are noticing it now. Old systems rarely resist someone who intends to remain exactly the same. Resistance often appears when somebody begins moving differently. Maybe you have recently felt a strange desire to clean your life up. To become quieter. To stop explaining yourself. To save money. To create something. To leave certain conversations. To become disciplined. To pray more deeply. To stop chasing people. To finally say no. To choose peace instead of chaos. That shift matters. Because when one person changes inside a family system, Everyone connected to the old version of that person has to adjust. Some will celebrate. Some will become confused. Some may resist. Not because your growth is wrong. Because your growth changes the relationship. And now we arrive at day 3. Decision. This is the day the pattern breaks. Not with screaming. Not with revenge. Not with some dramatic confrontation. With a decision. A decision that says, "This ends with me." Fear may have traveled through generations, but it does not have to travel through you. Financial chaos may have been normal before you, but you can learn a different way. Unhealthy relationships may have been tolerated before you, but you can create standards. Silence may have protected everyone else, but you can speak respectfully and clearly. Guilt may have controlled previous generations, but you can create boundaries without hatred. You do not need permission to heal. And here comes the revelation that may explain why this message feels so personal. The family member you still trust may genuinely believe they are helping you. That possibility is important. People can pass down harmful beliefs while believing those beliefs are wisdom. A parent who experienced betrayal may teach a child never to trust anyone. A relative who lost money may teach everyone that ambition is dangerous. Someone who abandoned their dream may discourage yours because watching you succeed reminds them of what they surrendered. A person who survived through control may mistake control for love. This is why your response must be wiser than anger. You are not being called to create another generation of resentment. You are being called to end the pattern. Imagine what happens if you refuse. Imagine 5 years passing. The same fears. The same arguments. The same hesitation. The same opportunities abandoned because someone made you doubt yourself. The same guilt every time you choose your own peace. Now imagine something else. Imagine waking up 1 year from today and realizing that you finally became the person who changed the direction. You stopped asking everyone for permission. You became careful about whose advice entered your mind. You stopped sharing every dream before it had roots. You learned that privacy is not dishonesty. You learned that boundaries are not cruelty. You learned that forgiveness does not require unlimited access. You learned that family history can explain your wounds without determining your future. That is freedom. And there is another layer. You may have been blaming yourself for years. You wondered why confidence seemed difficult. Why you second-guessed good opportunities. Why happiness sometimes made you nervous. Why you expected things to go wrong whenever life became peaceful. But consider this. If chaos was familiar growing up, peace can initially feel unfamiliar. And the human mind sometimes confuses familiar with safe. That means you can unconsciously return to patterns that hurt you simply because you recognize them. This is why breaking the curse requires more than avoiding one person. You must stop recreating the pattern yourself. You must stop choosing people who speak to you the way your deepest critic speaks. Stop abandoning opportunities because failure feels less frightening than disappointing someone. Stop shrinking your dreams so nobody around you feels threatened. Stop confusing exhaustion with loyalty. Stop proving your love by destroying your peace. The chain breaks when your choices change. And there is one more revelation. The person who changes your family may be you. Not the richest person. Not the oldest. Not the loudest. You. The person who finally asks, why do we keep doing this? The person who realizes, this is not healthy just because it is familiar. The person who says, I want something different for the people who come after me. Think about that responsibility. Someone in the future may experience a healthier family because of decisions you make now. They may never know your struggle. They may never understand how difficult it was for you to become the first person to say no. They may never know how many nights you questioned yourself. And that is beautiful. Because perhaps the greatest victory is creating a life where the next generation does not have to fight the battles you fought. So during these 3 days, watch carefully. Do not hunt for an enemy. Do not accuse people based on suspicion. Instead, hunt for the pattern. That is the real target. Ask yourself, what belief has kept appearing? Who taught it to me? Is it actually true? What has this belief cost me? What would my life look like if I stopped obeying it? Those questions are powerful because the moment you question an inherited belief, its authority begins weakening. Maybe the belief is, I have to keep everyone happy. No. You can be kind without becoming responsible for everyone's emotions. Maybe the belief is, I must stay because they are family. No. Family connection does not erase the need for healthy boundaries. Maybe the belief is, I'm destined to struggle financially. No. Past patterns are not financial prophecies. Maybe the belief is, nobody will truly love me. No. Someone else's inability to love you properly does not determine your worth. Maybe the belief is, I missed my chance. No. Your timeline does not have to resemble anyone else's. And perhaps that is why this message arrived now. Because you are standing near a decision. You know the one. The conversation you have postponed. The opportunity you keep analyzing. The boundary you know you need. The dream you have kept hidden. The habit you know must end. The person you know you need to stop allowing to define your worth. Your next chapter may require a version of you that no longer negotiates with old fear. And that can feel frightening. But courage does not mean you never feel fear. Courage means fear no longer gets the final vote. 3 days. Day 1, identify. Day 2, separate. Day 3, decide. Identify the pattern. Separate your identity from it. Decide what ends with you. And when the 3rd day arrives, do one real thing differently. Make the call you have been avoiding. Create the boundary. Begin the project. Write the plan. Save the money. Apply for the opportunity. Stop answering the conversation that always leaves you emotionally drained. Speak respectfully but firmly. Take one action that proves the old pattern is no longer directing your future. Because freedom becomes real through action. And remember this carefully. You do not need to hate the family member connected to your wound. You may even discover compassion for them. Maybe somebody taught them the same fear. Maybe they inherited it from someone before them. Maybe they never realized there was another way. But compassion does not require repetition. You can understand why someone became who they became and still decide not to become the same. That is maturity. That is how cycles end. And tonight, perhaps the message you needed was never, someone in your family is secretly your enemy. Perhaps the deeper message was far more powerful. Someone in your family carried a wound. They passed part of it to you. And now you have the opportunity to stop passing it forward. You are not required to continue the story exactly as it was handed to you. You can rewrite your chapter. You can choose peace where there was conflict. Wisdom where there was fear. Boundaries where there was control. Confidence where there was shame. Discipline where there was chaos. Love where there was resentment. And courage where generations before you learned only survival. The pattern may be old, but your decision can be new. So remember these words over the next 3 days. What was handed to you does not have to remain with you. What happened before you does not have to happen after you. And the voice that once controlled your decisions does not have to control the next one. Look closely at your life. The evidence is already there. A door you once feared is beginning to look possible. A boundary you once thought was cruel is beginning to look necessary. A dream you buried is beginning to speak again. A stronger version of you is beginning to emerge. That is why the old pattern feels louder. But louder does not mean stronger. Sometimes an old pattern becomes loudest just before you finally stop obeying it. So when guilt appears, recognize it. When fear appears, question it. When someone tells you that you have changed, perhaps you can quietly think, yes, that was the point. You were never meant to spend your entire life becoming acceptable to people who only understood the wounded version of you. Growth changes relationships. Healing changes conversations. Boundaries change access. Wisdom changes decisions. And one courageous person can change the direction of an entire family. Maybe that person is you. 3 days. Not 3 days to panic. 3 days to awaken. 3 days to recognize. 3 days to choose differently. And when you reach the end of that 3rd day, stand quietly and make yourself one promise. The pain may have reached me, but it will not rule me. The fear may have been taught to me, but I do not have to teach it forward. The pattern may have existed before my birth, but it does not own my future. I will love without losing myself. I will forgive without surrendering my boundaries. I will remember where I came from without allowing the past to decide where I am going. And I will become the person who finally says, "It ends here." The curse was never stronger than your ability to recognize the pattern. And now that you can see it, everything can begin to change.